This message is for those who question and don't believe. And sometimes, and I don't particularly condemn that because I understand it, because I was that way myself. When I came out with a chemistry degree, I was scientifically oriented, data-driven, and if you couldn't prove it, it didn't exist. So I understand the mentality. I've been there. And it took God orchestrating things in my life where I had to say, it's something else out there. This is beyond statistical probability. It's something else out there. So today's message is really designed for those outside of the church. So those in the church is not for you. Don't judge it. It's not for you. This is for those, and you may need this one day, where you need to send this message to someone who is highly intelligent, highly educated, and highly skeptical. So today's title is simply 3 questions. 3 questions. There are 3 fundamental questions that people have about life itself and about the continuity and the whole scheme. There are 3 questions. Regardless of your religious orientation, there are 3 questions, particularly those who are not religiously or spiritually oriented. There are 3 basic questions. Question number 1, creator or Poot theory. And y'all know, I said, Pastor, I understand creator, but what in the world is Poot theory? I'm assuming that all of you know what a poot is. A poot is the kind of delicate, nice way of putting what you normally would call a fart. Now, I have to put this down in where you understand it, but that poot is a gentler kind of term. And it sounds like it's softer, whereas the other one is loud and rough. It doesn't matter whether it's loud, rough, or whatever it is. But when I say creator or Poot theory, a poot or flatulence from the human body basically consists of a mixture of varying organic gases: nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, methane, and hydrogen sulfide. That's primarily the chemical composition of your average poot. Now, some exotic poots may be a little bit different, have a little bit more stuff in there. But that's your basic composition. The old people would call it simply passing gas. So when I say creator or Poot theory, there are 2 fundamental pathways to basically how we got here. Number 1 is that we were, in some form or fashion, created by an intelligence. And number 2 is Poot theory. Poot theory basically says that the universe and all life began with nothing but hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas filled the universe. It eventually all coalesced. Over billions of years, it coalesced. It compacted into this giant ball. The gravity became increasing and the heat increased in it. It finally compacted down to this singularity point and blew up in what's called the Big Bang theory. So basically, the Poot theory says all life came from nothing but gas. It came from gas. It developed into all of the different elements. As a matter of fact, a poot is far more advanced than just hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas is the simplest element on the periodic table. A poot got a whole lot of stuff in it. It takes about 1 billion years based on evolutionary theory just to develop the gases for a poot. So a poot is way beyond hydrogen. But basically, the first question you have to ask, creator or Poot theory? Now, Poot theory being the Big Bang theory, that all life began from gas. and that we developed over all of these billions of years. Science says that the universe is 13.8 billion years since the Big Bang, but that's what it says. The leading scientific theory is that during roughly the first trillionth of a nanosecond following the Big Bang, there was a single period of extremely rapid expansion known as inflation that formed the universe we observe today. 1 trillionth of a nanosecond is so short that by the time light would travel the thickness of a sheet of paper, the universe could have been created 339 times. I actually calculated that out. What was a trillionth of a nanosecond? How thick is a sheet of paper? Sheet of paper is 0.004 inches thick. So I actually calculated it out. Light would travel the thickness of a sheet of paper in that time, light is 186,000 miles a second. So light would go around the earth 7 times in 1 second. By the time light goes to the thickness of a sheet of paper, based on Poot theory, the universe would have been created 339 times. Now, Poot theory is the prevailing scientific theory. It's what most of the academicians will believe. It is evolution. And they primarily believe it because they cannot accept the concept of an intelligent creator, particularly the Judeo-Christian God. So you got all of the scientific community that believes in Poot theory. Let me simplify Poot theory. Now, would you say that that your body is more complicated than your car? Oh, nowhere even close. The human body is far more complicated than your car. Poot theory says this. Poot theory says that if I took some dirt, if I took some silicone, if I took some rocks with a heavy amount of iron in it, if I took some rubber and just put it all in a pile and left it long enough, it would turn into a car. That's basically what Poot theory says. So if you just can't take gas and have a man with intelligence walk out of that gas a few billion years later, yet you cannot wrap your head around if I took some pile of elements that a car gonna drive out of that a few billion years later. You say, that's crazy. How can a car drive out of it? Same way a man can walk out of the gas. So if a man can't walk out of a gas, how can you assume a car gonna drive out of the gas? Simple as that. So basically your first question of the 3 questions, creator or Poot theory, do you believe that all of this came from a poot? All of this came from gas. Do you believe that? That's what you have to fundamentally believe. Now, I am a scientist. I really am. And I can't wrap my head around it because it is too mathematically improbable. It's as simple as that. It is too mathematically improbable. I did an entire message just on creation or evolution that you might want. It's sermon number 5014 called In the Beginning, Creation or Evolution. I went through a lot of the science of basically those 2 different aspects of viewpoints. Creator. Now, I use the word creator because I did not want to use the word God, not for that particular audience who you may send this to. Because there is a serious block because people cannot accept a Judeo-Christian God that they automatically lean toward Poot theory because it may be something else. I simply say creator. And to an intelligentsia, to an academician who doesn't believe in anything that is Judeo-Christian, there are actually other theories. First of all, there's a theory that we were put here by aliens. Absolute possibility. I read a book in college called Chariot of the Gods by Eric von Daniken. Went through all of the history, all of the historical elements that we had been visited by aliens before. They influenced a whole lot of stuff. Star Trek. If you go and look at the documentaries on Netflix or Curiosity Stream, you're going to find dozens of documentaries about UFOs, that they've been here, they're still here, they're still influencing society. So could we have been put here by aliens? I don't know. But it's a possibility. The other possibility is that we're living in the Matrix. What? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The other possibility is that none of this stuff is real. We're in a computer simulation program somewhere. That is an absolute possibility. Most of the scientists, when you really talk to, especially those who are heavy into computers and AI, when you look at the advance that science has made just in the last 25 years, the tablet the phone that I'm holding right now, if you had this 500 years ago, you'd have been considered a god. It would have been absolutely, my phone right now has more computing power than the military had 25 years ago, than the whole military. So when you look at the advances of technology, right now you can put on virtual reality goggles and it feels like you're there. Now, they haven't gotten fully because that technology is less than 10 years old. What is it going to be like in 100 years? In 100 years, they will be able to have direct neural interface, and you will not be able to tell whether you're in a virtual reality or the real world. Some of the scientists said it's probably already happened, and we don't know whether we're in the Matrix now. Is that possible? Of course it's possible. So the thing about it is, but the point is, there are two branches. Poot Theory, which means everything is random, just occurred from gas. And the other branch is there is an intelligent creator, there is an intelligent creator behind this. That's the first question that anybody has to answer. Is this thing just random with no intelligence? And I go into the laws of thermodynamics to deal with evolution. It violates the third law of thermodynamics, something serious. You just have to go listen to this sermon. I don't have time enough to get into that right now. But the point is, that's the first question. Creator or Poot Theory? Which one? Creator or Poot Theory? There's intelligence behind me, not just walking out of gas, or I just walked out of the gas. That's the first question. Creator or Poot Theory? And there's a second question. Is this life all? Is this life all? Again, you got two sides. The Poot Theory side says once you die, and you are going to die, the somatic death of the body is going to happen. So once you die, once this body dies, Poot Theory said that's it. There's nothing but oblivion, eternal darkness. You have no consciousness. It's just gone because there's no spirit. There's nothing but random chance of molecules randomly organizing themselves where you walk out of the poot. So Poot Theory says when you die, there's nothing. And there's a lot of folk who believe that. And you can't prove it one way or the other. You cannot prove it one way or the other. But there's a lot of folk who believe once they die, there's nothing. And when you don't believe there's anything after death, you live differently. Why do I need to store up treasure in heaven if it ain't no heaven? Why do I care about how I live in this life? I'm going to eat, drink, be merry, enjoy myself, and die. Because there is nothing else. That is Poot Theory thinking. So if you don't believe there's anything else, you live differently. Now, on the other side, there are two dominant theories of life after death. One theory is the good place versus the bad place, what Christians know as heaven or hell. That's one theory, that when we die, we go through a process, and different cultures, different religions have different process, but the bottom line is you go through a process, whatever that process may be, the judgment, going across the river Styx, the scale, however it is, you go through a process, and you go to a good place or you go to a bad place. Different cultures got different names. We call it heaven. You study some of it, it's Valhalla, it's the happy hunting ground, it's this, that, and other. It's a good place or the bad place. That's one major dominant belief, is that once we leave this life, we go to a good place or a bad place. The other dominant theory is that once we leave this life, we come back. And that's the theory of the transmigration of souls, what is commonly called reincarnation. That's probably more dominant if you look at the major beliefs of the world. Even if you look at some of the Judeo-Christian, Orthodox Christians, it is appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. But there are also verses in the Bible that you can arguably argue for reincarnation. That's unclear. It's not clear from a scientific point what happens after death. But you have to make that decision or answer that question, is there life after death? Is this life all? And regardless of which one of those you subscribe to, now I'm not talking to the church because we know what we believe. I'm talking to everybody else who's not in the church or who's not in any particular, regardless of which one of those you subscribe to. If you don't believe, if you believe that this stuff is not just random, if you don't believe in Poot Theory, if you believe there is something after death and you're not just swept into oblivion, then that's the third question. How do I get to the good place? How do I get to the good place? When you're dealing with everything outside of Christianity, it's based on works. When you're dealing with Christianity, it's based on belief and works. Now, a lot of them, it ain't just belief, it's belief and works. I did a sermon on that, sermon 5171 called Workbook. You need to go listen to that because it goes through the scripture of why it's both of those. But when you're dealing with these three questions, and these are three questions that are really, really deep for people who are not in the church, that they have to ask themselves and they have to answer. And the thing about it, I haven't given you any answers to those three questions because it's not for the church. See, the church already knows the answer. But I'm not giving you answers to those three. This is for the other. And this is the stuff other folk who don't have particular set beliefs or ideas about. These are the three questions they got to ask. Creator or Poot Theory? When I die, what happens? And if there is a good and a bad place, what do I do to ensure I end up in the good place? Those are the three questions. I'm not giving you any answer because if you're in the church and you don't know the answer, woo. So I'm not giving you the answer. It's not for you. It's for other folk. That's why I said today's message is not for you. It's for other folk. But those are the three questions they need to really, really ask themselves. And see, when you get to that first question, and that's why the Bible begins with the answer to that first question. That's the first line in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the first line. So he said that straight from the beginning. I created this stuff. Now, if you don't believe that, that's one thing. And a lot of the world, most of the world does not believe the Bible. So that's not unusual. That's a common thing. But these are the three questions. And then you got the folk who do believe the Bible. You have, when you study history and even of the church, you got changes in belief. We go through periods like we just went through the prosperity period. Then you go to period of grace. Then you go, as long as you preach it, hell and damnation, it goes through waves of stuff. Out the same book, depending on what you want to focus on. But those three questions are critical to those who are not rooted in a faith and in a belief. They have to go through the process of asking themselves those three questions. Creator or Poot Theory? When I leave this body, what happens? You may not exactly know, but if it's the good place or the bad place, then what do I do? Even if it's reincarnation, what do I do? What do I do to get to the good place? See, reincarnation got a good place and a bad place. It basically says you come back based on what you done. And you can come back in some hellish situations. So what do I do? And what are my answers to these three questions? These are the questions that people who are not rooted in Christ must answer. What do I do? Creator or Poot Theory? What happens when I die? And how do I get to the good place? I thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word. You can go to brothersoftheword.com and send this sermon to anyone you feel who needs it. You can also go to brothersoftheword.com, listen to the 2 sermons that I recommend that you listen to, Workbook or Creation or Evolution. They will enlighten you on a lot of different things. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word.
From